Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education, featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another Tutoring Tips Episode of the Prepped and Polished podcast. It's Alexis Avila of Prepped and Polished. Please be sure to check out our website, preppedandpolished.com, for more information. And if you need any tutoring anywhere around the globe, in person, online, call us 781-753-9951. You can join our Prepped and Polished community on Facebook. Just search for Prepped and Polished. You can submit a question during the show or after, radio at preppedandpolished.com. We love hearing from you. Let's get right to today's episode 163, How to Study for an Exam. Today, let's talk about how to study for an exam, especially if you got executive function disorder. First of all, because you've been I'm assuming that you're using a great scheduler with a note-taking feature, so you shouldn't be surprised when an exam comes up. Hopefully you have your calendar handy. You're using that just to stay organized, stay on top of tasks, and just make sure you always have plenty of time to prepare for an exam. And the more challenging the material, the more time you should give yourself to prepare for it. Learning and understanding new material takes a few stages. So let's talk about that. So first comes the initial exposure, and that's the first time you read about or the first time your teacher mentions it in class. Then there's time to work with the material, actively engage your brain and start to settle into your working memory. Then there's time to sleep, time for the material to make its way into your long-term memory, and then finally there's time to review. So it takes a few stages, and the bigger point we're trying to make here is that most of what you can really do to be ready for an exam takes place way before the exam actually ever happens. And unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. The best things you can do to be ready for the test are pretty straightforward. Go to class, take good notes, do all your homework, and review those notes. And if you do those thoroughly, diligently, you'll be in good shape, for any exam you encounter. Now, assuming that you've been diligent about your schoolwork up to this point, there are a couple specific steps you can take to really get ready for that big test. So the first thing to consider is scheduling. You want a backwards plan from the date of the exam. Usually each section of material that's going to be tested lends itself to being broken up into chunks, either chapters or units, some kind of section. And break up how many chapters or units you have between now and test day and plug it into different days that you're going to be studying for. And always leave yourself a couple days at the end to review everything in total. And you also want to have extra time because remember, you don't want to cram. It takes a good night's sleep for stuff to sink into your brain. Teaming up is another useful strategy, so that means making study groups with your friends, and assuming you guys actually study. It could be really helpful to take turns teaching each other the material. A lot of the times when we explain something to someone else is when we really take it in and start to understand it more thoroughly. Here's another strategy: ask for help. This gives you ample time to go to your teacher for clarifications. Give yourself ample time to go to your teacher for clarification on anything you don't understand to this point. And you shouldn't have any unanswered questions heading into the test. And then finally, take good care of your body. Make sure you get a good night's sleep the night before the test. Don't cram. Make sure you eat a good, healthy breakfast, high in protein, low in fat, the morning of the test so your brain has energy to work. So those are the basics of exam prep, especially for students who struggle with executive functions. Remember, most of what you can do comes way before the exam. It's really important that you go to class, take good notes, and do your homework. Then when the exam time comes, make a schedule. Backwards plan and leave yourself enough time that you're not stuck cramming, and gather all your material together and reach out to friends to make study groups, ask for help, and take good care of your body. And you'll be in good shape for your next test. So this wraps up our show today, episode 163, our Executive Function Building Blocks podcast series, How to Study for an Exam. Be on the lookout for our next podcast, episode number 164. Our next podcast is my interview with Campus Bound founder Greg Cohen. Remember to access all of our podcast episodes. Go to preppedandpolished.com/podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.